she made him with her own body. From the newborn earth, the great mother shaped a partner, and all unknowing, the first tyrant. This is the story of the first marriage in all of creation, and of the first betrayal that tore it apart. When we last stood in the dark, the cosmos had only just drawn its very first breath. Chaos, the great gap, had opened. From that yawning void rose the first powers, earth and the abyss, night and day, and the golden desire that draws all things together. The stage had been built, the first lights had been lit, but the great stage of the cosmos still stood almost entirely empty. There were as yet no titans, no Olympians, no Zeus upon any throne, only the first powers and a great deal of waiting. And the oldest and surest of them all was Gaia, broad-breasted earth, the ground beneath everything, the mother of all that comes next. But the earth was lonely. Above her stretched only empty air, no roof, no canopy, nothing vast enough to answer her own immensity. So Gaia did a remarkable thing. Out of herself, with no partner at all, she brought forth a being equal to her own vastness. She gave birth to the sky itself. The Greeks called him Ouranos, Uranus, the starry heaven, arching wide over all the world. Hesiod tells us she made him equal to herself, made to cover her on every side, a sure and everlasting home for the gods to come. Picture him, a vast figure of deep midnight blue, his skin scattered with stars, his cloak the whole slow-turning night. She had shaped him to be her companion, her equal, her crown, a husband born straight from a mother's own longing. She did not yet know she had also shaped her jailer, that the very sky she made would one day become the lock upon her prison. For now, though, there was only wonder. Earth below and sky above, two vast powers gazing at one another across the young world. And remember what now stirs in the cosmos. Desire is loose in the world. Golden Eros draws the scattered things together. So the sky bent down to the earth. Uranus lowered himself over Gaia, and the deep heaven lay close upon the waiting land. This was the first marriage, the union of earth and sky, the oldest wedding in the world, and the source of a whole dynasty. And from that union, Gaia began to bring forth children, not faint or formless, but mighty, the first true gods of the cosmos. First came the Titans, 12 of them, towering and radiant, the eldest royal family of all the divine. There was Oceanus, the great river that circles the whole world, and Tethys, his sister, the mother of all the waters. There was Hyperion, the lord of light, and Thea at his side. From them would come the sun, the moon, and the rosy dawn. There was Coeus and Phoebe, Creus and Iapetus, names that would father gods, giants, and the cleverest of all rebels to come. There was Themis, divine order and law, and Mnemosyne, memory herself, from whom the 9 muses would one day be born. And there was Rhea, gentle, patient Rhea, who would one day become a mother in her turn and suffer just as her own mother suffered. But the very last of the 12 to be born was the one who would matter most, the youngest, the boldest, the most dangerous of all, Cronus, crooked-minded Cronus, who from his very first breath looked upon his father with something far colder than love. Hesiod says it plainly. Of all the children, Cronus hated his powerful father most. Remember that. It will matter very soon. But the Titans were only the beginning, for Gaia and Uranus were not yet done, and their next children were stranger by far. Next, she bore the 3 Cyclopes, and these were not the gentle, dim-witted giants of later and kinder tales. Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, thunder, lightning, and the bright one, colossal smiths with a single great eye in the brow. Now hold one thing clear. These are not Polyphemus, not the man-eating monster Odysseus would one day blind inside a cave. These are far older and far greater. Divine craftsmen whose hammers would one day forge the very thunderbolt of Zeus himself. Strength was in their hands, and craft and raw elemental power, They were magnificent, and their own father feared them. Then Gaia labored once again, and brought forth the most terrible children of all, the 300-handers, Cadis, Briareos, and Gyges. From the shoulders of each grew 100 massive arms, and upon each neck sat 50 heads. They were mountains given motion. No power in all the young cosmos could hope to stand against the storm of their 100 hands. Hesiod calls them the most fearsome of all the sons of earth and sky, and says their father hated them from the very first. And here something curdles in Uranus. He looks down on his vast and monstrous brood, and what rises in him is not pride, it is dread. For a king who rules over everything has only one true fear, that one of his children grows strong enough to seize his throne. And these children were strong. So Uranus made a choice, perhaps the cruelest choice a father has ever made. As each new child came to the very brink of birth, he refused to let it rise up into the light of day. He pushed them back, down and down, back into the very body of their mother, into the crushing dark of the earth. And the first of them went down screaming, swallowed into the deep, while high above, the cold starry sky simply turned away. One by one, he did the same to all of them, Titan and Cyclopes and 100-hander alike. Not one was allowed to see the sky. Imagine it. Children pressed back into the womb that bore them, denied the light, denied even the chance to breathe the open air. And Gaia, vast, living Gaia, became their prison, her own great body packed full of her trapped and struggling children. They did not die. Gods cannot die. So they lived on, crushed and crowded in the airless dark, in endless, sleepless pain. And their pain became her pain. Every struggling limb, every silent scream pressed and strained against her from deep inside. Hesiod says vast earth groaned within, being straightened, crammed, and choked with the children she could not set free. And worst of all was this: her husband knew. Uranus saw her agony, and Hesiod tells us that he rejoiced in his evil doing. He took pleasure in it. The sky looked down on the suffering earth and called it good, because her pain kept him safe upon his throne. This is the first betrayal of the cosmos. Not a war, not a monster, a father smothering his own children to keep his crown, and a husband turning the very body of the wife who made him into a living dungeon for their own sons. And something in Gaia changes here. The patient mother, the gentle earth, feels a new thing rise in her, slow and cold and certain: grief. And beneath the grief, harder and sharper still, the very first anger ever felt in all the world. She had given Uranus everything: her love, her body, a whole bright family of children, and he had answered all of it with cruelty. So the great mother stops her weeping, and deep within her aching depths, she begins very quietly to think. If the sky will not free her children out of love, then the sky will be made to free them by force. But who could ever strike the sky himself? Who could raise a hand against the very king of all the cosmos? Not Gaia. She was the earth fixed, rooted, unmoving. She could plan the blow, but she could never deal it herself. The hand that fell upon Uranus would have to be one of his own children, one of the very sons he had buried alive. So Gaia made a weapon. In the secret forge of her own depths, she created something that had never before existed in all the world. A gray, gleaming metal, harder than anything else in the young world. The Greeks gave it a name, adamant, the unconquerable. And here, let us clear away one more confusion. Adamant is not diamond, not some pretty jewel to be set into a ring. It is mythic, unbreakable stone metal, the very thing our word adamant still carries. Something that cannot be bent, broken, or turned aside. From this gray adamant, Gaia shaped a great curved blade. A sickle, long and jagged and wickedly, terribly sharp. Not a tool for harvesting fields of wheat. A tool for harvesting a god. A blade forged for one single terrible purpose: She hid the sickle away in her depths, and then she called out to her trapped and suffering children far down in the dark. She spoke to them, a mother's voice reaching down into the prison of her own body, where her sons lay crushed and aching. "My children," she said, "born of a sinful father, if you will listen to me, we may yet punish his cruel and shameful outrage. For it was your own father who first began all this. He first thought of doing shameful things. The guilt is his and his alone." She held the great Grey Sickle out into the dark. "Who," she asked, "among all my mighty sons will dare to take it up?" And from her children, those vast, strong, godlike children, there came back only one single answer: silence. The Titans, the eldest and the proudest, said nothing. Oceanus was silent. Hyperion was silent. Iapetus held his tongue. The strong-handed Cyclopes, the monstrous hundred-handers, even they did not dare to speak a single word. For though they hated their prison, they feared their father even more. Uranus was the sky. Uranus was everything above them. To raise a hand against him felt like raising a hand against the heavens themselves, and so fear held them all frozen. A long and dreadful stillness settles over the dark. The mother's desperate plea hangs unanswered in the crushing deep. And it seems in that moment that cruelty has simply won, that fear is stronger than love, and the sky will rule forever, that Gaia's children will lie buried in her body for all eternity, and the first betrayal will never, ever be answered. But fear had not quite reached everyone. Down in the very deepest dark, one single pair of eyes had not looked away. One son had listened to every word she said. One son felt no reverence at all for the father who had buried him alive. The youngest, the boldest, the one who had hated Uranus from his very first breath, Cronus. Out of the silence of all his mighty brothers, the youngest Titan alone took courage, and at last he spoke. "Mother," he said, "I will undertake to do this deed. I hold no reverence for our father of evil name." "For he was the one," said Cronus, "who first thought of doing shameful things. Let the punishment, then, fall on him." And Gaia's vast heart leapt. At last one child brave enough or cold enough to lift the unconquerable blade. She placed the great Grey Sickle into the hand of her youngest son. His fingers closed tight around the unbreakable blade, and she told him her plan, exactly how, and exactly when the great sky might at last be caught and struck. For there was a pattern to the heavens every single night. The sky came down to lie once more upon the earth. Every evening, Uranus descended over Gaia, longing for her, drawing the deep dark down with him across the whole world. And in that one moment, close and unguarded and lost in his own longing, the king of the cosmos would lie open to the blade. So Gaia hid her youngest son in ambush, folded deep within herself, the great Grey Sickle held ready in his fist. And there Cronus waited, crouched in the crushing dark, his amber eyes fixed upward, his jaw set hard with terrible resolve. Above him, all unknowing, the vast starry sky began once more his slow and certain descent toward the waiting earth. Closer, the stars of his great cloak swept down across the hills. The deep dark folded over the silent, breathless world. Gaia held still. Her trapped children held still, and in the deep, the youngest son tightened his grip upon the blade. The sky came down. The hidden sun rose up, and the great Grey Sickle caught the cold and distant light of the stars. And there, with the blade raised high and the blow not yet fallen, we must leave them balanced on the very edge of the deed. Because what Cronus does in the very next breath will shatter the first family of the cosmos forever and utterly remake the world. From this single strike will pour out vengeance and monsters and a goddess of terrible beauty rising white from the foaming sea. And it will begin a curse that no power can escape, that every father who seizes a throne will himself be overthrown by his son. The first betrayal is about to be answered, And the long, bloody, and unforgettable story of the gods is about to truly begin. Thank you for watching. If this tale stayed with you, subscribe. A new myth arrives every week, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Until then, may the old stories keep their hold on you.